Meeting and budget workshop, LaSalle County Commissioners Courts, November 14th, 10 a.m. We're at the Commissioners Courtroom. We have a full quorum. If we could rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Before we start, is there any public comment? No public comment, then go to number 4. Discussion and enter possible action to approve reports. There's a fatality. There's a DOA on Carrizo. Like you didn't have a check from Evalorum. Do they give you this, a list of who they refunded money to?
The report should have their own, I don't think it's a list.
Or just the checks? And the reason I asked Mary is like, it shows $108,000 in collections, but $152,000 going back to refunds. And the reality is that once she gives all the money back to you, those refunds should come back from you because the money was already turned in. So if she collected $108,000 and she's refunding somebody else, she's refunding from a different source of funds. Yes, and it should be coming back from you. I don't know if Jorge's here? He stepped out. But it's a different pool of money. You know, yeah, it comes to her, but it was a different purpose.
Because I've never done anything.
Because once she gives you the money, she's giving the money for that taxpayer. Let's say it's taxpayer A paid $100,000. So when he submitted the money last year, and now maybe giving him a refund this year, she'd have to get it back from you because she gave it back to you. That's the original source where it went. Yeah, and that's something that she should not, you know, it should come back from you. Once all the money's given back to you, then it should be coming back from that source. So. And you get the same result, I mean, you get the same result, it's just, yes. Mr. Flores. Mr. Flores. I don't know if you'd look at the reports, but on the tax assessor, she collected $108,000 and she refunded $150,000. And I was explaining to Mary, the treasurer, is that theoretically, if she's gonna give a refund, it should be coming back from the treasurer because that money's been remitted already to the treasurer at some point in the past. So if not, she's giving a refund from a new source of funds that's coming in, you know, that month. And I don't know if there's a different accounting basis or that's something that's allowed with the treasurer's office, I mean, with the tax assessor, and you get the same result at the end, but still the documentation part is that it didn't come in from.
Because she does have an account that I don't have access to, so it's fine, so I'm leaving that's where she does the refunds.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be okay, but theoretically, she's supposed to give you all the tax money. So if it's one of those taxpayers that gave you the tax money, that refund should be coming back from that source. And I don't know, I mean, that'd be applying accounting principles, but I'm not sure if you'd agree to something separate.
Well, if you get the tax collector does, it's on her monthly report, she puts the refunds in the report. So we're actually reducing those amounts from Angelo.
And it reduces it, but theoretically, those monies were paid in previously. You know, so, and where I was considering or thinking is that early in the year, some of the monies were misapplied to the road and bridges, not the general. So monies that we were anticipating to go to the general fund, and maybe it should have been taken back out of the road and bridges, is not gonna happen. Or, I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me. Because if you split the money coming in, and now, because of the way the collections were, all the road and bridges are all at a high 90%, and yet we're still under collected by about 2 million, so there's not gonna be any change. So at the end of the year, you're gonna have $1.5 million, $2 million deficit on the taxes, while everybody else got 100%. you know.
What we do is that we reduce the amount of the refund for the general fund, the road and bridges, and the debt service, based on the same percentage as the ad valorem taxes are distributed.
But you would reduce the refund only if it came back from Mary. If it's coming from Dora, that's not gonna happen. You know, that's something to look at in the future. Not that you did anything wrong, it's just the different pots and where they're supposed to go. Who was the only one we didn't get a report from, precinct 3? Constable 2?
Constable 2, 3.
2 and 3. Yes, Constable 2 and 3.
I'll make the motion just to accept the reports as presented with precinct 2 and precinct 3 to bring the in further down.
So as presented with the exception of precinct 2 and 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion? Laura, like on this year's report, I mean this month's report, your current year taxes are $6,714,000. The delinquent taxes are $39,218. Your discounts are $195,000, which are related to the current taxes. Your P&I are $10,000. Your attorney fees are $5,900. You got net debits commission of $129,000, and then you have refunds of $73,000. And we're not questioning the refunds. We're questioning it. I'm questioning is if the refunds for prior years exceed the delinquent taxes, then if the refund for prior years exceed the delinquent taxes collected, then there's a deficit. For example, you got $73,818 taxes, $39,218 in delinquent taxes, $10,000 in penalty interest, which is 49, $49,300,000. So there's a deficit there. So where does that deficit come from? Because would it be reducing the current taxes, or is it reducing other funds?
Good question. I have to go back and look at it, I'm not too sure. I just know that we did a whole bunch of refunds.
Because I don't know if the refunds are related to this year or last year, or maybe it's both.
I think it's both,
It-
because some of them were supplements that we did, and then the rest of them were like prior years.
Because if it's prior years, then those monies have already been given to the treasurer in the past. The original taxes. So for example, let's say you have taxpayer A and he paid 100,000, and now he's entitled to a refund this year. Well, you're taking it out of your bank account, but the reality is that you've already reported it. It's not that you're doing something wrong, it's just that it's already been paid. So then you may come into the shortage like this because you had already remitted it.
Yeah, but I thought it would be the same, because,
And it wouldn't be, because it's already been reported that your bank account shows like you're less. But in reality, there's some money being held with the treasurer's office. So it's just something to look at.
okay,
Because then it might look like your bank account is short, but the reality is you've already reported some of that money. So, but just, I'm outside looking in, that's all.
yeah, that's fine.
But it's not like it's wrong, it's just something to look at because, oh, she's short, where'd she get it from? Well, some of it, yeah, really has already been reported, but it's good, Jorge, to follow up on it.
Yeah, and I believe I had asked one thing too, if it was right, because to me it sounds right.
I mean, and the reality, the county has all got it, but some of it you've already given it over here, and then when you refund it, then it may look like you're short, and I know you've run into it in the past, and it's not that you're doing wrong, it's just, something to look at.
Okay.
So, saying that, I'll call to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Minutes?
Sorry. Sorry.
September the 30th, October 17th, and December.
Did everybody get a chance to read them?
Yeah. I did.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Motion's been made and second. To approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Number 6, discussion possible action to authorize precinct 1 to accept management maintenance of Cthulhu Cemetery, including acceptance of deed to Ken Salle. I know Mr. Bell was here, and he previously told us that they're not going to be, in the very near future, they're not going to be managing the Cthulhu Cemetery anymore. And had asked the county and the city to run the maintenance of the cemetery. I checked with the city, and the mayor told me they didn't want it. And so the issue is, the commissioner wants the management of the,
Do they have to sign a paper?
they're gonna have to do a deed. They're gonna have to give us back the deed. Now, the county originally bought some of it, not all of it. But wherever there is a deed, they're gonna have to give it back to, the county. And it's in precinct 1, and it's up to,
Judge, excuse me, do you want me to approach to try to answer any questions that the court?
sure.
Chairman, can you tell the court why you are the one in the more, why you're not gonna take over it, or, I mean, if I
Sure.
can, I mean, what's?
Sure,
why-
sure,
why?
Commissioner. As all of you may recall, for some time, for the Cemetery Association, I have indicated to the court and to the judge and to the commissioner in the office that realistically speaking, from a sustainable standpoint, if you will, that an entity other than the Cotulla Cemetery Association would have to take over the management, operation, maintenance of the Cotulla Cemetery. The Cotulla Cemetery Association has done that for decades, but as is the case with a number of organizations, we have fewer and fewer volunteers. We have invited folks to step in to the organization to assist, and we haven't had any takers. We understand. But the four of us, volunteers, we're not going to be able or willing to continue to do all of this indefinitely, obviously indefinitely. It just makes sense to have something like the county, which will remain in place, to take over the operations, et cetera, of the Cemetery Association. This is something we've been pointing out to the court for some time. The judge and the commissioner and I have had some discussion off and on in the past of how to do this. And again, as the judge indicated recently for the Cemetery Association, I gave formal notice, if you will, to the court that by the end of next year, if not before, the Cemetery Association, as it is, will step away from overseeing the cemetery. This gives ample time for the association and the county, the court, commissioner in the office, to implement a transition that'll be smooth, that'll work well for the county, that'll work well for the community, and so that's what we're here to do. As you all understand completely, the cost of regular routine maintenance, not necessarily operations, but maintenance of the cemetery, that's gone up. The Cemetery Association has no control over the income or revenue, whatever words you'd like to use, that we receive. The bulk of that, as you may recall, has been an increasing stipend from the county. So the county's vested from that standpoint already, has been. Now, we've not received a stipend for 2 or 3 years, I think, because we're kind of anticipating this transition. But we don't control what income or revenue comes in. And again, the bulk of that, for many years, a significant amount of that has been a stipend from the county. So from that standpoint, the county is vested. We've approached the city in the past, and as the judge indicated, they've not been interested. Yes, sir.
We have budgeted every year money for to the cemetery. I don't know, did you submit a letter, or you've never
No,
submitted a letter?
What typically year in and year out we do. However, we have not for 2 or 3 years, I don't remember exactly, because it was recommended, hey, hold off on that request if we're going to be looking at a transition, simply put. And so we've been using funds that we've had in reserve. We've been using the income or revenue that does come in from plot sales, from donations. But again, people who donate could stop anytime they choose. The little bit of overage, if you will, that we receive from plot sales that goes back into maintenance, it's minimal. And so we'll run out of money at some point. The scale will tip to where what does come in will be outweighed by what goes out to maintain it as we have been, and there won't be any funds for that.
Cameron,
Sir.
is there a way you could find out for who's in every, there's a whole bunch of grave sites that nobody knows where they're at, who they are.
Right.
Do you happen to have a map?
Commissioner, not a map, the only records that we have are for the newer parts of the cemetery. What we call the west, which is by TxDOT, and what we call the east, which is in the corner of Baylor and Medina, and then also the new addition, which is where you see the new graves right off of Medina Street. The Catula or main cemetery, those graves go back to the 1800s. The older, primarily Hispanic part of the cemetery in Antigua, same thing. The Cemetery Association has never had records for those older parts of the cemetery.
Yeah, Jorge did
I asked
that
Carl.
at Cristo Rey.
Huh?
Jorge did that at Cristo Rey, and they got a machine that's called ground penetrating radar. And they found one grave closer to the city dump, way back there. You know, I don't know if he's marked there, he should let us know how it works, but I think he said it was like $2,000 a day for the equipment.
Judge, Commissioners, years ago, we talked about possibly contracting with someone to do that in the older part of the cemetery so that we could identify unmarked graves. But it was just not something that we saw was an urgent need or wanted to allocate funds for. In the older part of the cemetery, without question, there are unmarked graves. Exactly where they lie, we do not know. If part of your question is how much room is available out there?
No,
Okay.
I'm just curious because my grandfather is buried there, and
Okay.
when I was a kid, I saw his name there.
Yeah.
In just a white cross.
Yes, sir.
And I've been wanting to find him so I can put him on bigger
Right.
headstone.
That's a difficult task. If ground penetrating radar was used, it would identify grave sites, but there's no way to know whose remains are interned there. One other point I'll make quickly, if I may, is that, yes, Judge, from what I recall, going back many years, the county gave acreage to the Catula Cemetery. Moving forward, individuals and couples and families have donated acreage to the Catula Cemetery. So there have been various transactions over the years, but all of that, of course, is a record.
So, upon the transition, you would provide the books and the records of the deceased that you do have?
Sure, yeah.
Now, several years ago, Norm A. Tyler did a census of everybody that was buried there.
Survey, yes, sir.
If possible, she may have some knowledge on that part.
Right.
You know, crosses may have been still there, maybe some type of marker that she may have documented.
I think all of her information is online somewhere. What she did, as I understand it, was she did an on-the-ground survey or assessment, if you will, writing down names and dates that she found on markers. Now, some of those markers may be gone and not replaced.
Yeah,
But
but,
there's some information
you
there.
know, it'd be interesting if she did a diagram, you know, maybe a diagram, because she did it for Cristo Rey as well.
Okay,
She did it for Cristo Rey as well.
okay. I'm not sure about that as far as. I know.
Maybe talk to her,
Okay, I'll try to do that.
and get her knowledge, well, you know, her help is good, or mine.
And And Judge, if I may, Commissioner, I appreciate your point very, very, very
Since
well.
I've been looking for him since
Yeah.
1981.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What we have to do looking forward is what can be done to continue to provide grave sites here in Petula and LaSalle County.
He
And
was-
there is room out there.
Well, I had found them. Then when my daddy died, that's when I started.
Yeah.
We need to have a meeting,
There's a whole bunch of
December, that way,
whitewashes out
at
of
least get it
cement.
started.
And
Yes.
they all
Just
have their
simply
names,
listen up.
but now they're dissolved. I mean, they Can't tell.
They wear out over time. Years ago, we did contract with two men to go through most of the older part of the cemetery to clean old markers and to replace some of them. But many are just completely dilapidated,
Yeah.
and any inscription or writing that was on them was worn away. And in those older parts without records, we can't go and replace names and dates or anything like that. That's, in the end, from the Cemetery Association's perspective, that's up to a family to do if they're able to. But a lot of
There's ways to
people,
find it.
very few don't
There's
have
ways to
anything.
find it.
Where's the-
That's all.
Yes, sir.
I'm just telling commissioners, one of the things that we worked on and we didn't get to finish was the expansion of all three cemeteries because there's a lack of plots. And once they get full, they're gonna have to look for other land to, for the people of the county, or the city or the county. So it kind of goes good if you do the expansion of part of the land next to it that the county owns, for some additional grave sites. So you increase it here a little bit, you increase it in Cristo Rey, you increase it in Ensenada a little bit, then you have graves for the next 20 years. That'd be good for y'all to finish up because it started already.
Judge, as we discussed, as I just mentioned, there is room, a significant amount of room, as I described it in the curve of the farm to market, that open area. The city owns planted streets in that, and the cemetery owns some of it. And then with the county property where the travel trailer park was, Judge, adjacent to the east and Antigua cemeteries, you have significant room, if it's developed properly, to the northeast and to the southwest of the existing cemetery to expand.
During COVID, we lost quite a bit of people.
Right, yes,
And it,
yeah.
make you realize that another pandemic or endemic, may have.
Right. Yeah, if I could give you, and I could, if I could give you an average number of deaths year in and year out over the past 5 or 10 years, that we could project, but COVID would skew that, yes, but barring a catastrophe, it's typically a couple of dozen, 3 dozen folks a year maybe who pass on who are buried here.
The funeral home has 2 or 3 funerals a week. And some of these people, I don't know where they go, but that's 156 deaths
If you
a
look at it
year.
that way.
That's 156.
That's not the case. Some of those are buried elsewhere. They're cremated. Their cremains are kept by the family or interned elsewhere. But COVID did show us, of course, unfortunately, that there can be a number of deaths ongoing in a period of time. Yeah, there were, just a side note, and this is probably not of interest, there were weeks where there were literally 5 to 6 burials a week just at the Petula Cemetery, and perhaps more in the community, at Cristo Rey and the Catholic Cemetery in Artesia and Sam. Sad. You have to be prepared.
So if it's accepted today for the commissioner to accept the management, do you think you'd be able, would that speed it up?
Sir?
Would that speed it up? For example, today we have an item to accept on behalf of Commissioner One, that responsibility of management and maintenance.
Well,
Would the transition speed up?
well, that's primarily up to the county. We're not in a hurry to get out from underneath, the responsibility, and a transition, in my opinion, should not be hurried. As you've already mentioned, there's gonna have to be legal transactions, entered into or transacted. But the county taking formal action is necessary, of course.
And then if you decide not to? So,
Sir.
should we wait till you're ready, or?
Well, I mean, again, it's, you all with legal, counsel, financial counsel need to instruct us on what information is you all need, from us, and we'll provide that as soon as possible. In my opinion, it's not realistic for, if the court approves this action, for the commissioner and his crew and the county indirectly, if you will, to know how to do everything by the end of the month or by the end of next year. I'll be available, and perhaps Carl Childers and others will be available over time to assist indirectly. Some things that have happened.
The biggest thing is the documentation of where people, have space to bury their family or loved
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah,
So if you have pretty much a map of all the open spaces that are available,
we have surveys, and what we don't have actual surveys, we can diagram. That's not an issue, Judge, Court. We can show you easily where room is still currently available, and it could be available again in terms of that farm to market after the city abandons or vacates the streets that they have planned. That'll need to be a transaction, from my perspective, between the county and the city.
You think you're gonna need extra help?
Sir?
You think you're gonna need extra employees to
Well,
maintain?
that's not gonna be road bridges, that'll be for the cemetery, so.
That it'll be under you?
Because
me,
you
but-
got one last year for the cemetery.
Yeah, I mean, I need to hire like 2 more persons, and buy stuff for that, make a little storage there somewhere. I mean, my road and bridges stay where they're at, and it's gonna have to be a different.
Can we do that to me, Judge?
but there was a discussion that we needed to talk, and we can cover the budget because, on the budget, because
Jack has.
it seems that everybody kind of wants to maintain their own precinct. Their own precinct, the responsibility.
And if we were not to take it, what would happen?
Well, as we've discussed, as far as the Castilla Cemetery Association as it's structured today, and given the four main or only volunteers that we have, we would notify the membership in quotations, because we don't have a formal membership, but we have people who donate what we call or request maintenance fees year in and year out, and make other donations. We would notify that list of people that by the end of next year, when the Cemetery Association would dissolve and no longer oversee. It's just not feasible. It's just not practical, Commissioner, or sustainable for this small group of volunteers to maintain it, and or particularly to expand and maintain it. And we've already agreed again that the community has a need for more grave sites.
Like, on Cristo Rey, who does all the paperwork?
Nobody.
Like,
Still nobody else?
How does that work?
That went through a lawsuit, because that deed was for the people of the Colonia, and they didn't have anybody managing. The only thing that we need from Cristo Rey are the records, the Reyes, and Keith Franklin represents them. So as soon as we get the records, we can have the meeting. It might be next year. You know, in that case, the new judge and Raul would be on the board.
See, because how would it work over here? Like, who would keep records?
Over here, they have the deed, and that'd be precinct 1. You know, if they decide to,
Like, to go show them?
I'll probably have to hire somebody, me too.
Yeah, that's
I'll
what I'm
probably
asking,
have
like,
to hire somebody to do the paper.
that's what I'm saying. Because we don't, the Cristo Rey. is
But
a-
if Cristo Rey belongs to the county and the city, or
We
just
just,
county?
we just been maintaining.
the county and the city, it's just that the county's been doing all the maintenance. So we just gotta have that first meeting to,
Just hire somebody to take care of it.
yeah, hire someone, because there's cash, and we agreed to put cash. We budgeted 25,000,
That way,
so the
Road
city,
and Bridge don't have to do it.
so the city, huh?
That way, Road and Bridge don't have to.
But it frees you up.
Yeah.
It frees you up too. But then you still have a say, because you're still on the board. So you still have a say on that involvement.
Okay.
So, I mean, the thing is, today, on the motion to authorize Commissioner to proceed with the, accepting the management and maintenance, and he's gonna need the help of the county attorney to do so as well. You know,
He's gonna need an actual budget for that. Aside from your road, you're gonna have a director, possibly a secretary for the director, to see on top of that, unless you have time in your schedule to stay on top of it, because that's important. Then of course, there's the D work, and then we need to also, make sure that they notify whoever is donating, just to put it out there. Once we're in that process to say, hey, this is stopping, this is going into the hands of the county.
I know what I mean. If you also have questions,
Yeah,
next
no.
year I'm out, you can still ask me on where's that, huh?
May I interject, in response to the county attorney, and in the newsletter that we send out every year, for years now, we've been indicating that we are trying to work with the county to transition. So the word is out. Yes, we would give very clear.
You follow through? You follow through?
Yeah, that was those.
But that's in, McMullen County.
There's two, one on the site.
Additionally, Judge, or if I may say, as you all were just discussing, it would, you could very easily allocate resources for one employee to primarily, if not exclusively, work at the cemetery, especially if you expand. There's always so much to be done.
They want a secretary for all of them. Much better.
Also, if I may interject, and I'm certainly not trying to speak for the county attorney or the commissioner in the office, but as I mentioned earlier, there is not a big amount of administration and operation that goes with it. It's up to the court, but perhaps, unless it's necessary from a legal perspective, is if the commissioner thinks he may have time to directly oversee it, and the employee or employees that are allocated to maintain the cemetery, give that a try. If it requires more administration, then perhaps the
But,
No,
county-
that's-
I mean, but see, Cameron, you're only looking at the view of the cemetery,
Yeah.
and the commissioner has a responsibility, or has other buildings in his precinct that he'd like maintenance as well. So it's,
I understand.
you know, so it's, if it's looking at just one thing, it's fine, but over here, like Commissioner Yala,
Maintenance is easy.
Yeah.
The paperwork.
I understand. And with the county, I understand, versus an organization, I'm sure, more is required from a documentation standpoint. I understand.
so that would be the thing, is what you want.
What do you mean?
Well, you're accepting responsibility,
Yeah.
so is that something you want to do?
I don't mind doing it.
Is that something you put in form of a motion?
Okay, now,
I'm okay with it, if we could get something written from the city saying that they want no part of it, because right now we're going through issues with Cristo Rey.
There's no issues with Cristo Rey, we just have to have the meeting.
Yeah,
We just have to have a meeting with the court. Javier already said it, I mean, it's gonna be up to you, to you to decide at the very end.
so then
We have on the agenda today, the city, we don't have Cristo Rey on the agenda.
No, I understand.
Huh?
I understand that.
But-
But right, that way we can do a budget for.
He talked to the mayor, and I talked to the mayor.
They don't want it.
Why not?
Judge,
Why not? Because they don't have the city of Petula has tax over only inside the city limits.
Yeah.
You all have taxation for the whole thing. They don't have the money
They don't have employees.
to handle it.
Judge, if I may, Commissioner Ramirez.
Yes.
As I mentioned already generally, it's been some time, but I met with Larry Dovalina, and asked about the city, increasing their involvement in the care of the cemetery. And as Commissioner Nealis and the judge have indicated, he expressed that they were not interested in that. It disappoints me, but it makes more sense from my perspective, all things considered, for the county, just to do it.
Okay.
Okay, so
Are you gonna make a
I'll
motion?
make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries.
Motion carries.
Judge, Court, thank
And
thank
I'll
you
try to
all.
follow up on Cristo Rey and Ensenada, because that lawsuit was filed.
In Arlington?
In Ensenada, huh? You want Fowlerton too, so we can get that at least started?
Thank you all again for
Thank you,
your
Cameron.
past support and your current consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
available to answer questions. The judge and Ronnie will have to get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Number 7 was discussion and/or possible action on lease of property for precinct commissioner
I want to table that, Judge.
1, huh?
I want to table that.
You want table?
Yeah.
¿De qué era esto?
I wanted to get a lease,
Huh?
make an office, I'm going to table it.
Lease of property for prison one, what's that for, Judge?
Well,
It doesn't say what.
everybody
Are you
has,
discussing it or was it tabled? Was there a
well, he asked
motion?
if we
I
put,
just don't want anybody to
oh, he put a motion to
Is it
table.
for you don't want me to
He
talk?
put a motion to table. He put a motion to
There is
table.
no second?
Is there, I mean, I'll second to table
Y'all
it.
are discussing, I just.
I'll second the table. I think what we need to come up is that there's some key properties up for sale that we should consider. And they're all in precinct number 1, that we probably need more information and come back and get that information to you.
But that's talking about a lease property.
Lease, but now some other properties come up for sale, so that's why he wants to,
See, if I was to take over the cemetery, I need to have an office somewhere,
For what?
an office. So I was gonna try to find a place to lease it. But now I found some places that's for sale. I mean, it's pretty cheap, it's got like 4 acres. So maybe y'all can build apartments or something, it's close to the school. And I can have like an acre in the front, so I can have my stuff, my equipment, and a little office, and then you can build something on the back.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't,
I already had property for a precinct 1,
Where?
they said in another meeting.
I mean, there are property, and what he just mentioned, and I asked that anybody come from the public talk from the podium. But the thing is, some of the property may have a better economic use or use for the city instead of just an office. Meaning, what he mentioned, that property next to it, maybe it could be split, the cemetery, maybe apartments for the teachers at the school, the property we have, there's different uses of that property that we do have. So instead of making a quick decision, there's some alternative properties available, and we probably need to put it in the agenda, if not this year, next year, to look at.
okay.
Because it's not always, yeah, I mean, you can build many different things, but sometimes some properties may have a better use for something else.
Motion's been
Hmm?
to table.
Motion, and the second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Huh?
Judge.
Number 8, discussion possible action on COLA for County of LaSalle employees. We did a COLA last year. We did it for December. Thought maybe it'd be better to get it out earlier before Thanksgiving. So it's a cost of living increase, so I don't know what you want to do or how you want to treat it.
For the employees.
Yes.
Last year it was $750 for full-time, and it was $75 for part-time. That was last year.
We go $20 more.
And 350 part-time?
275 part-time, and
275.
$750 full-time.
The economy is going down.
Hmm?
The cost of living is costing a lot more.
¿Te da la full time, Mary?
750.
What?
Go up a little bit.
Jorge, how do we stand?
Dinero.
How do we stand?
Con el dinero.
Very good trade.
Good? Go up a little bit on
And it
that.
would be most expensive, for the regional detention center. And the other funds, can be really handled, the cost of living.
We do.
The regional detention center is half of it, right?
Almost.
Huh?
Almost. A third of it.
At least. Like even of this year's budget, there's excess revenues of about 2 million for next year. And I don't know how much excess you're gonna have. We're short on our collections, about 1.5 million, but we still have good surplus.
The general fund, still has over $20 million,
So, people didn't get a cost of living increase this year early. They didn't get held back on raises quite a bit. So, I mean, this would help them out. You know, what you budget for next year, you know, it's gonna be up to you. You can amend the budget as you need for the employees, not for the elected officials, whatever you do for elected officials, stay. Huh? But for the employees, you know, for the employees, I mean, if you do it in holidays, and you know what, a lot of people do their holiday shopping right after Christmas.
Black
It'll
Friday,
probably go, huh?
right after Thanksgiving.
It'll probably go a little bit further, probably be better appreciated by the employees.
Cool, Friday, Black Friday.
Black Friday.
Next week period.
And then you're done with
Next
it,
week's big period.
and then you're done with it.
How much?
I mean, if you keep it the same as last year,
I was gonna
I mean, if you wanna do more, it's up to you.
say 1,500.
Huh?
1,500. If that's not
I mean, that can be done.
$250 more, 225.
¿Qué tantos son?
Lo mismo, the same we had
Huh?
last
How many employees do we have?
Yeah.
All the warehouse.
Huh?
All around.
Yeah,
So how many are
but we
you?
did it last year.
This,
It's only $200 more.
yeah, but that's a lot of employees in the whole county.
Yeah.
They're the same ones
But,
from last year.
but,
Yeah, but that's
but
$200 more.
But if we would have done cost of living increase somewhere, you know, in between the summer,
It's
it would have
more.
cost a lot more than what we're giving out.
I'm not giving much, so 750, 250. And you know, when you go shopping, $200 is nothing. No, that's my point of view.
You know, if they earn 30,000, if you would have given them a 6% increase, that's $1,800. So the employee is still, it still hasn't been made whole. ¿Me entiendes? I mean, so we're still saving compared to having across the cost, across the board increase. And that's only at 30,000, you know, you bring it up to 60,000, that's 36, you know. You put that in form of motion?
How much for the full-time?
1,000
Me, 251,
and 500 for,
500 for the part-timers. That's what I give my drivers. I don't
And that's
know.
gonna be on the, on next pay period, that way they can get it before instead of,
See, by
Yeah.
so
Black
the
Friday.
next check.
And next check is gonna be a short pay period again, since we have the holidays.
No,
So,
no les pagues.
turning attention,
No,
please.
no les pagues.
No les pagues.
so is that a form of
I'll
motion?
make the motion, Judge.
Here's a second.
Motion dies.
No.
Second. Oh, pues hable,
A
pues.
second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Number 9, discussion possible action on new financial software, Edmunds Government Tech for the Treasurer's Office.
Judge, Commissioners, good morning.
Morning. Okay.
I know you're probably thinking, here we go again, here we go again. A few years ago, Hill Country Software notified us that they were going to cease operations. And we used Hill Country for over 20 years. But Hill Country was bought out by LGS, and LGS had their own financial software that they're now recommending for everyone. So we started, because Hill Country was gonna cease operations, we started looking for a new financial software. And we were actually looking at a software named STW. STW was then bought out by Overgov. But that's the one that was purchased. Then, about a year and a half ago, OpenGov told us, once we had already implemented OpenGov, they notified us that they were no longer going to pay us. So we started looking for a payroll company, and we found one by the name of UKG. Now, OpenGov was charging $40,000 per year, and UKG payroll was going to charge us $35,000 for a total of $75,000 a year. After we purchased UKG and actually began the conversion process, OpenGov notified us that they were going to go up on the fees substantially. And they wouldn't give me a price, but I heard one of the people that work for OpenGov mention that the minimum they would charge their clients was $95,000 a year. So now we were looking at $95,000 plus the $35,000 for payroll. So we were looking at the end of the OpenGov contract in about 2 years. We were looking at spending $130,000 for financial software and payroll. So I started making some calls, and we were able to get out of both contracts. And we started the search again. And we actually started the search with about 15 different companies, and then began to narrow it down. And we finally narrowed it down to 2. Edmunds Tech, which is the handout that I just gave you. And the other one was called FundView. FundView is a little more expensive. Not that much more expensive on the yearly charge, but the conversion itself was twice as much. So we're recommending Edmonds does take financial software, they do everything, they do payroll. Also, so, the cost, if you look at the first page, the cost is $19,000 per year. Plus, in the middle of the page, $4,200, that's for cloud hosting. So we don't have to do the daily backup, everything gets backed up on a daily basis to the cloud. So the annual charge for Edmonds is $23,000, $23,200. There is a $9,000 fee for implementation and a $9,000 fee for the conversion, but that is a one-time fee. So in the first year, we would pay $41,200 and then $23,200, and it's a 5-year contract.
On Edmonds, are the accounts listed in the chart of accounts easier than what you have now? I mean, because the account numbers from Hill Country, I mean, I could still remember them, 12, 300, 311 for ad valorem, I could still, and they're easy. But the accounts you converted to are like 12 digits long, and when they're that long, then it's easier to make mistakes. So I don't know what the chart of accounts is going to look like from Edmonds. I won't be here, but, still, it affects your productivity if they're too out of whack.
Edmonds works with the chart of accounts we have now, or we can change the chart of accounts. Edmonds can handle either one.
And-
If we want to change the chart of accounts, we can.
And did you look at the journal entries? Are they hard to make?
No, journal entries are actually, it kind of goes back, open up kind of makes things a little bit more complicated. Actually, Edmonds kind of goes back to the way Bill Country used to work as far as recurring type journal entries that you can bring up the template
So-
and then just change it.
And that was one of my other questions, repetitive templates.
Yeah.
Repetitive templates.
You should prepare templates for journal entries and for cash receipts.
Like if you recall, Dora, then it would pull out the template and then it's broken out already, or margins are broken out already. So it makes it easier to do so when you have repetitive templates. At least recording your income, or breaking out expenses too, when you pay for multiple departments. So it has that, that's good. So you would need a motion to authorize the purchase of Edmonds for an amount of $41,000 for the first year.
$41,200 for the first year and $23,200 for the next 4 years.
So you would need a motion to authorize that. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
Is there a second? Can't get paid without it.
No? You gotta have it. Yeah, I know, Jack.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
No, come on. Thank you, Jorge.
Discussion possible action on PST RAC's proposal.
What's that, Judge?
The fire department.
Oh.
Danny, you here? No? Margie, you want the original? Danny? Danny here, you got it, you need it? All right.
Income. Number 9.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Morning. This is a proposal, it's called PS Tracks. It's a tracking system that we've actually been demoing for the last 60 days. With the new regulations from the Drug Enforcement Agency, Department of State Health Services, Texas Commission on Fire Protection, basically everybody that oversees what we do, this system will help tighten control and actually allowing us to digitize everything we do. We're getting out of the Stone Age and moving forward. With this proposal, it allows us, everything is computer checked, so it goes along with our call. So if we run a cardiac arrest, we use X amount of drugs, the person that replaces the drugs out of the cabinet, it shows it on the computer system. So then our inventory control is tightened, and we can keep accountability of what's going in, what's going out. Therefore, rising costs of meds and all the other equipment, we keep that down. So we're trying to also cut the cost of what we're spending. Medical supplies, they're going way up really quick. So with this system, we're going to be able to really lock it down. Also, in order to help lock things down, I work with Ricardo, and we actually have put cameras in our supply inventory so we can keep track of employees. That way, we know that they're not taking anything. It's another added measure for DEA and the state that they're requiring. And then next year, I want to propose for the fire department that we actually start, because we carry narcotics, fentanyl, and other drugs, we random drug testing monthly to ensure, not that I don't trust any of our employees, but I want to make sure when the state comes or DEA comes, we have the documentation saying, these are all the things we're doing to prevent that.
Just like when accidents happen and stuff like that, right?
Yes. And right now, our system, it's kind of the system that's been in place nationwide. If we use a drug, let's say fentanyl, we get to the hospital, we have to waste the remaining front of the nurse and they sign off on it. But this is the tracking for here. We actually have to have 4 different levels of security for our drugs. And now they don't want paper records, they want us to go to digital. So it's $5,400 a year with a one-time setup fee of $5,400, but the setup fee can be extended across 5 years. Once you have a setup fee, once it's paid, you don't ever have to pay that $5,400 a year. It's just annual $5,400.
54 or 52?
No. That is all 54.
I use 54.
52, sorry.
52. 5.2.
And it's a $5,200 setup.
What's that like?
Is that yearly or one time?
A year.
It's $5,200 a year, and the setup fee is $5,200. Now, you can set up, the setup fee of $5,200 to be paid over 5 years. But by doing that, it locks that $5,200 a month annual fee in place for 5 years.
And that's for both stations, right?
That's for both stations and every piece of equipment within the department. All of our equipment will be on including the saws, everything that's super expensive. We have a lot of expensive equipment. It also includes maintenance tracking on the vehicles, as well as oil changes, annual inspections that require on the ladder trucks and so forth.
No, not 80.
Jesus.
So then it's 5,200, you said?
$5,200 a year annually, and then a one-time $5,200 setup fee. But we can, within the court side, we can do that setup fee across 5 years. So, it's $1,050 roughly a year for 5 years.
So, Debbie, what was the initial term then, 1 year or 1 to 5?
1 to 5, it's up to the,
And the reason I ask is, I'm just looking over, so I knew you gave it to me, you can't get out of the contract during the initial term. So,
right.
the difference would be 5 years or 1 year. Just FYI, you cannot for any reason get out of the contract if something goes bad.
Now,
So that's, 35,000, something like that.
And the governing law has to be changed to Texas.
yeah, I saw that right now, I was like, oops. Now, the way we're using to track ourselves is an Excel spreadsheet, which is kind of archaic. But all of our equipment has service life on it, like our fire gear, so forth, our air packs, the 10-year service life. But everything's been purchased at different dates, so we have to go in there monthly and track that. This will actually alert us that this is coming over to the end of the service life. And during the next 2 years, we have a lot of stuff coming to that 10-year mark.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
So you have a 5-year contract, right? But then 365 days. And you don't like it, you report it 30 days after.
Number 2, explain number 2, Danny.
Which page?
Master agreement.
Master agreement.
Y voilà, todo.
Because I know once you sign the contract, you can't get out of it, but
No.
right there it
Yes.
says, they give you 365 days free trial. Not free trial, but if you don't like it, you could report it after 30, before 30
That's
days.
the money back next year they're giving you.
Okay,
But only during that time, after that, you're stuck with it for whatever.
okay,
So, motion's been made, is there a second?
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Who's that?
Policy for purchase.
What's the case?
Well, at the last meeting we covered, because remember we covered the bonds
Yes.
of the people? And in 2003, this is when I first wrote the policy list, was in 2003 when I came in. And at that time, Mrs. Martinez and District Judge Ellison reviewed the policies that we developed. And we developed the policies that way people wouldn't get in trouble. Because at that time, before 2003, I was treasurer. And people wanted checks and we needed to wait for this report. So we provided the guidance to be able to make checks. Or Jim short one. No, I got extra one. Or did you get one? Yeah.
One short one.
Yeah. Next one.
Another deck.
Tú lo tienes.
The one there.
There.
This is the one there.
And the last time we looked at it was in 2015. And purchases changed and amounts changed. But like anybody that works on buildings, mandatory, it's in the statute that they have to have a bond. Now on equipment, some people, they're just tire repairman. Well, yeah, I mean, you can make an exception just for a tire repairman, but on equipment, some of this equipment is worth $250,000 like the motor graders, and some are worth $1 million like the fire trucks. So I would urge, I think 250,000 was good that we approved, but it wasn't something that I made. And I know you don't want to cut small businessmen out, but I mean, if it's for tires and oil changes,
Do a mask.
fine. But what happens if they don't put the plug in and the engine blows? How are you going to go after them?
Yeah, you're in trouble.
So there should be some type of a small bond anyway, or insurance.
That they have to have.
yeah, you can change it, you know, you think 250,000 is high? Okay, if they're working on equipment that's worth,
But we do our own, are we qualified?
no, I mean, you're exempt.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you're exempt. You're
I'm out of that.
you're exempt.
We do all.
But I just want to show that these policies weren't something that we just came up, we've updated and sometimes they don't get updated. Or we don't put them out. You know, and time to time you all need to look at them again. But it's not something that I actually made up, it's something that say, hey, this is what we've adopted. You can make changes to them in the future. This is, the second page is what we've adopted. We made the changes to, which is only the bond. But if you want to make changes to them, you know, feel free to do it even next year, but you gotta have the policies. Because they save you, they save people from getting in trouble. And these follow the government code. That's why Len Ellison back then was a DA. Now he's retired as a district judge. So it's not just like, hey, Joel made him up. We did it to make it easier and to protect Mary. Because if you see the construction payments are done, it says the construction mate, she didn't want to wait because she didn't want to get in trouble for not cutting a check. But on some of these grants, the law says that once you get the grant money, you have to pay it out within 5 days. And how do I do it? You know, well, we had covered it. It just, you don't have time to go back to the minutes to look at all this stuff. You know, we have a number of policies we've done. We've done the American Express policies, we've done the purchasing policies, we've done some of them that have been incorporated to personnel policies. I would suggest maybe taking some and making a little binder and have, you know, other county policies and add it to the personnel book. You know, that way, you know, they have an idea of what applies. But I didn't really have it for action, I just had it for y'all to see. Last time, Commissioner Alba and Nialas got to look at it, you weren't here, but it's just trying to protect the county. But like if you want to go lower the tires, you know what? Get a policy for $5,000, you know, something small.
Cheaper.
When y'all can do that,
Yeah.
if that's the case. I mean, you don't want to put them out of business, but you just want to make sure we're protected. You know, sometimes, or that they have insurance, you know, any legitimate business would have to have some type of insurance.
Especially on mechanics.
Huh?
Especially on mechanics.
But like I said, if they're working on an ambulance that's worth $1 million, you want to make sure it's covered.
Well, that needs to go to the.
Huh?
That needs to go to the.
Dealer.
Where they made it, dealership.
Should go.
Yeah, because you can't take a chance.
Sometimes it's simple, I mean, but sometimes it's simple repair, but still, we all decide. And I'm not asking to take action, I'm just saying, hey, if you want to change it, you can change it on that, but,
You have it at 250,000? Or what?
yeah, we put it at 250, remember it's $1 million, because when they were grading, Commissioner Nieves was privately operating a grader, and so was Noe Sanchez, they put up $1 million policy each. And I have a stack of about 2,000 bonds where it's $1 million and a $3 million comprehensive. Because all these pipelines and everybody else that does business with contractors has to post, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not something that we just came out of the blue, it's been applied to everybody but a select few. But the smaller businesses, and it doesn't apply to stores, it doesn't apply to O'Reilly's or it applies to the people that are working on their equipment, the contractors that are working on the courthouse or the buildings, that's all it applies to. Everybody else is exempt. If they're selling tires, fine. And if you want to do less for tire repairman, I understand, that's probably your biggest people. I mean, it's hard to to do so, but, you know. I've seen in the past where a contractor that's a repairman works on CDL and the work fails or they don't pick it up in the inspection, then they get sued as well.
They get caught.
Huh?
They get caught.
They get caught. So that's the responsibility that we want to make sure we're covered, you know.
So do we need proof to have it on file, like everybody we hire?
Mary gets it. Mary gets the policy. In the past, they file it with Margie, and then sometimes I get it. Sometimes you get them too, right? So, but I mean, if we require they don't do it, it's on them. If they require they don't do it, it's on them. But if you would think about it, and then come back and figure out, you know, come back and address it, you know, let us know.
We need to spread the word out so mechanics can get that done.
And then some of them have, but I mean, do you want it less or not? Do you want it less for the tires? Do you want it less for the oil changes? You can specify it, you know.
That's good.
I mean,
But it's just, there's no mechanics here.
no, but still, even if they're out of town, if they do an oil change and said, okay, they'll be responsible for the cost of the engine. Put some type of wording in there.
Andy has responsibility.
Or they're responsible for making the tire good, you know,
That's against Salle. If they get plug punched out.
or repair, you know.
Oh, the
Or just
repair-
leave them alone,
Yeah.
or just leave them alone. Or giving you a thread discount.
Yeah. Because they're always.
If they sold a tire, you know, and the thread is just barely gone, most of them have manufacturer's warranty, so they should give, if it's a tire defect, they should give you a discount.
Good tires, but the ones we buy, they're China.
No.
It's a no.
Yeah, we don't-
No?
You gotta get Michelin, Goodyear, good ones.
If you want to think about it a couple of days, and we'll probably have another meeting next week.
Okay.
And the only thing left right now is the budget. What?
Payroll.
Payroll? I skipped number 10. Oh, number 10. Discussion possible action authorization to update Stockman National Bank and tax pool accounts with the county district clerk upon taking oath of office for January 1st, 2023. She's an employee of the county already, and I'm thinking you probably can update her on the books already if you want, or you can do it upon taking oath. Huh?
Has to designate her.
So, but we can still designate her now, right?
Just effective,
Without the oath.
just effective January 1st.
To be effective is January 1st.
See, y'all gonna have a payroll the first week, and you may not have the chance to have a commissioners court meeting. So we do the action now to allow Sonia to get all the paperwork processed, so on the first or the second, whenever the bank's open, she can go sign, the same thing with Texpol, and
The
it's
first
done.
is Sunday, so Monday.
So on Monday, they can go sign, and they're done, because that's important, you know, otherwise you may not get a paycheck.
Okay.
So this is more an administrative request from the treasurer and
Clerk.
the clerk.
Okay.
So is there a motion to,
I'll make the motion.
Second.
for Sonia?
Yeah,
Maldonado? It's upon taking oath.
yeah.
Motion's been made, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So we got 11:29, we can do the bills and then recess for
Budget.
budget, for lunch. Huh? Yes.
And then budget.
Yes, then budget after lunch.
Can you go back over that?